All right, since we last talked, Mark Sanchez was not only stabbed, and a lot of people thought that he was the victim, but updates have come out where they started to realize that he may have actually been the aggressor. But before we get into that, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're notified each and every time I upload a new video. Also, make sure you subscribe to my Substack so you can stay up to date on every case that I talk about. With that being said, let's get this started.
This incident wasn't a random act of violence, and initially former quarterback Mark Sanchez was believed to be the victim. But now the Fox Sports analyst is facing criminal charges after the victim told police he feared the former football player was going to kill him during the altercation.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable.
Law and Crime obtained the probable cause affidavit of the incident, and here's what we know so far. According to police, this past Saturday, officers in Indianapolis were dispatched to a local pub after initially getting reports that someone was shot. Court documents say when officers arrived, they made contact with a man who was later identified as Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez was suffering from several stab wounds, but then police located another person in an alley nearby. This person, who is only identified in the court document as PT, had a laceration or cut made to his left cheek. EMS rushed both men to the hospital. Now, when officers spoke with the sports analyst to get a statement, he allegedly told them all he could remember was grabbing for a window. According to police, he didn't remember much of what happened. He didn't know who stabbed him or where the stabbing happened. Mark was in Indianapolis for work because he was supposed to call the Colts-Raiders game for Fox Sports. His colleagues acknowledged his absence from the game yesterday. Kurt Menefee saying on Sunday, Friday night in Indianapolis, one of our team members, Mark Sanchez, was involved in an incident that, to be honest, we are still trying to wrap our heads around. At this time, our thoughts and prayers are with Mark and his family and all of those involved. Fox Sports also releasing a statement over the weekend saying Mark Sanchez was injured in Indianapolis on Saturday and is currently recovering in the hospital in stable condition. We are deeply grateful to the medical team for their exceptional care and support. Our thoughts and prayers are with Mark, and we ask that everyone please respect his and his family's privacy during this time. Police went back to the scene to get to the bottom of what happened, and that's where they learned there was surveillance video of the incident. According to court documents, there were two hotels located on both sides of the alley where the incident occurred. One of the detectives went over to the Westin Hotel first to look at the surveillance video, but the video was reportedly in poor quality. When the detective went to the other hotel to review the video footage, they spoke with a man only identified in court documents as BB, who told police he witnessed the altercation. BB allegedly told detectives he saw a larger man wearing a black shirt and another man who was a truck driver interacting with each other. BB at first thought the two men were friends and didn't think much of it. Then he noticed the two men were using their cell phones to record one another. Next thing BB saw was the two men going to the other side of the truck driver's truck. Then he saw the truck driver tumble over while the man in the black shirt was standing over him. According to court documents, BB thought they were just wrestling or something. Then the man in the black shirt ran off while the truck driver stayed near his truck. BB didn't know the full extent of what happened, only realizing it was serious when police started showing up. When detectives went to review the surveillance video at the other hotel, that's when they got a clearer picture of what allegedly happened. According to police, the video from the Indianapolis Marriott showed a man believed to be Mark Sanchez jogging northbound in the alley. That's when Mark runs toward a large box truck that is backed into the loading docks at the Westin Hotel nearby. He allegedly is seen going behind the truck, then reappearing, but still heading towards the same direction. Then something happens. Mark Sanchez, according to what detectives saw in the surveillance video, then reappears heading towards the opposite direction, and he approaches the delivery truck again and approaches the driver's side door. The other man involved is only identified as PT in the court documents. Officers confirming, though, that PT was an employee for a company that specializes in commercial cooking oil recycling and disposal. And more importantly, he was on the job working when this altercation happened. So police say Mark approached the driver's side door of the truck, he opened the door and started talking with PT. This went on for a few minutes. Then PT is seen walking toward the security office doors of the Marriott. According to police, PT was out of the view of the surveillance video, while Mark was seen standing near the front of the truck. Moments later, PT is seen again walking toward the passenger side of the truck, and Mark allegedly follows him. Then PT goes to the driver's side, and Mark allegedly follows right behind him. The two then have some kind of interaction at the driver's side door. door. Then PT walks toward the front of the truck, Mark Sanchez allegedly following behind him again. Then PT walks towards the back of the truck, and Mark allegedly following him again. Police note then Mark allegedly runs after PT, and the video shows the sports analyst allegedly grabbing PT and throwing him towards the wall of the Westin Hotel. Now, it's important to note here, what we do know about PT, besides that he is a truck driver, is that he's also 69 years old. So Mark Sanchez allegedly threw this 69-year-old man against the wall, and then the two just began fighting. According to court documents, the fight continued up against the dumpster, and then the two began fighting towards the middle of the alley. Mark allegedly threw PT to the ground. PT stood up. Mark Sanchez stood there for a brief moment before turning and running north. When detectives spoke with PT, his statement pretty much matched everything the detective saw on video. He told detectives Mark opened the driver's door. PT got out of the truck. The two were talking because Mark, for some reason, told him he couldn't be at the loading dock, and that Mark spoke to the manager of the hotel even about it. PT told the detectives he didn't have his hearing aids in because his truck is super loud, so he had to lean in to hear what Mark was saying. When PT leaned in to presumably hear what he was saying, he said Mark smelled of alcohol and he was slurring his speech. PT said he was confused, so he went to contact his manager to find out what was going on. Even though sports fans might be able to recognize Mark Sanchez, PT had no idea who he was because initially he thought Mark Sanchez was the manager of the hotel because he appeared well-dressed and well-groomed. Then Mark allegedly climbed into the cab of the truck, leaned over the driver's seat, and looked in towards the middle area of the seats. When PT told Mark he's not allowed inside the truck, Mark came down, but kept repeating that he spoke to the manager and he didn't want PT to replace the fryer oil, which was PT's job. Mark allegedly tried getting in the truck again. PT told him he could not let him in the truck. PT tried calling his manager, but Mark allegedly blocked him from trying to call his boss. PT confirmed to police that Mark wouldn't stop following him as he tried to get his cell phone. When he tried to get it from the passenger side, he was blocked by the former quarterback. Same when he tried to get it from the driver's side. Then Mark allegedly shoved PT, and PT believed he was in physical danger. He reached into his pocket, grabbed his pepper spray, and sprayed him in the face. PT told detectives that the pepper spray appeared to have an effect on Mark Sanchez at first, but then the former football player wiped it off his face and began allegedly advancing towards PT. PT told the detective he thought, "This guy is trying to kill me." So he pulled out a knife, and then Mark Sanchez came at him. PT allegedly struck him 2 or 3 times with the knife. PT told detectives he found himself flying back into the dumpster and falling onto the pallets on the ground. And then when he was on the ground, he said he didn't know what Mark was allegedly physically doing to him. PT didn't know if Mark was punching him or striking him. He only saw Mark's feet coming at him, and he thought this was a matter of life or death. PT was able to get on his feet somehow and stab Mark another time. Mark appeared in shock after that final stab, and he slowly turned away and took off. Gruesome photos shared by PT's family show the aftermath of the altercation. The photos are so gruesome, we can't even show them without blurring a good chunk of it. But you can see him on the hospital bed with a major cut on his left cheek. He has a neck brace on and blood just everywhere. PT's family told Fox 59 he was cut in the fight and it went through his cheek and hit his tongue. Even though Mark was also recovering from his stab wounds in the hospital, he was placed under arrest for battery, unlawful entry of a motor vehicle, and public intoxication. According to police, though, in their most recent press conference.
Okay, so if these allegations are true, Mark is an entitled prick. So what's strange and what's odd about this situation is that when you talk to, and this could be because people are defending him and things like that, but this is pretty extreme for someone who has zero record, right? And has no record, doesn't have a history of violence, doesn't have a history of anything. So either one of two things, in my opinion. Either we're going to start hearing about the ugly side of who Mark really actually is, or we're probably going to find out that there is some other related situations to this incident, like drugs and alcohol. I would suspect that it's not just alcohol, but it would also be drugs as well. I know that they're expecting a toxicology report out of this situation, but what's interesting also is I think we're going to start hearing a lot more of a dynamic and a lot of people that are going to want to hold the sports universe, so to speak, accountable after this incident, because there are so many people and so many like Fox Sports and so many other analysts that came to defend Mark initially when they found out that he was stabbed, and only to find out that he was the aggressor, allegedly. So I think that there's a lot to be learned here in this case, and I'm curious to know what would happen if the video is released. I do know that they released the video of Mark walking away after being stabbed. But the incident of the actual fight that happened, right, if you want to call it a fight, an attack, and the reason why I'm wording it as an attack, when you look at what happened to that 69-year-old man, right, and it was, I saw the actual pictures without the blur. It's so gruesome that you can't even put it on YouTube. I want you to think about that, right? There's a lot of gruesome things on YouTube. There's a lot of people who talk about true crime. There's a lot of different, I mean, they have literally, I'm going to be doing a video on Ed Gein, and they have actual pictures of some of the skins that Ed Gein, when he skinned people. But this is so devastating, right, that they had to blur it to be able to get it past YouTube's algorithm. So, and I've seen the pictures. I mean, there's a huge gash on the side of the man's face. And what I didn't know until I watched this video was the fact that that gash, that cut, goes all the way through to his tongue. It is, so this attack, I'm not sure what happened or why something like this would tick Mark off to this point. But the only thing that I can think of is that Mark feels this entitled to talk to people like this, to feel like he can make demands from people, basically like a Karen, right? Like a I don't know how tall Mark actually is. Obviously, he's a former pro athlete, but a 6'5", entitled pro athlete that's also a Karen, right? That now also has this violent streak. But I'm going to be curious to know if all of a sudden that we now start hearing different things about his past, that maybe he actually is this violent person, right? That starts fights, that tries to push people around, that tries to bully people around, and he happened to get into a situation. And it doesn't sound like the 69-year-old was obviously he wasn't looking for a fight, but because the 69-year-old, I mean, they said in the report he didn't have his hearing aids in, so he couldn't hear properly. Leaning into Mark and those sorts of things. And if anyone who has ever dealt with or watched or worked with a bully, you know that bullies will take every little inconvenience and they will take it as like it's a slight towards them. So for example, the 69-year-old mentioned that he was leaning in to listen to Mark more clearly because he didn't have his hearing aids in. Well, someone who has bullying tendencies like potentially Mark does, especially after being drunk and possibly doing drugs and those sorts of things, would take that as a slight and as an inconvenience. Sometimes people like that don't even like repeating themselves. The fact that this guy wasn't moving, was still doing his job, wasn't listening to Mark, and was challenging his, quote, authority. People like this, when they are challenged, especially if they feel like that person is beneath them, can at times react like this. You see this all the time with people who engage in like road rage, right? But I'm going to be curious to know, and we may not even ever understand this completely. I just don't understand why Mark went down that alley or down that road to begin with. What was it about this man parking in that spot that pissed you off so much? Did he clearly didn't take your parking spot because your car, or I'm not sure if he took a train or what the case was, but what was it about him parking there, right? It wasn't in your way. It wasn't like, so what was it? Was it just this guy? You didn't like the way he looked. You didn't like his background. You didn't like something about him. You didn't like the place that he was servicing. I'm also going to be curious to know if Mark was connected anyway to the restaurant that this guy was working with, right? Did he know the owners? Did he know the managers? Did this give Mark this sense of entitlement to these type of things? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I think there's going to be a lot more that is going to be revealed as they continue their investigation, but we will see. With that being said, thank you very much. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're notified each and every time I upload a new video. Also, go down into the description down below. I have a playlist where you can watch other episodes that I've done, other topics, other cases that I've covered. Also, be sure to subscribe to my Substack, where I give updates to different cases that are going on. My Substack is completely free. I know a lot of people charge for their Substack. It's completely free. I would like to build it up to where there's a community where all of us can talk about these cases in unison. With all that being said, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next episode. You guys have a good one.